So today, I wanted to take a look at directly what reality actually is, um, as directly as we can, and as opposed to what we think it is, because the longest part of my awakening process, this body mind here, was to come to understand that reality was completely different to what I thought it was. Or I am really different, completely different to what I thought I was, that I am not at all what I have thought myself to be, that reality, myself, you, all of us are really pointing to the same one substanceless substance that is everywhere at all times, appearing as all of these things. And the delay for a lot of us is this allegiance that we have to the way that our mind perceives the world, the way that our mind perceives reality. So I was always kind of searching for this shortcut. Is there a shortcut to actually experience reality directly? And that's what I want to do today with you. So we're going to do some direct sort of inquiry, looking at what actually is. And then I want to just go into why we can't seem to stay in that direct seeing, what it is that seems to pull us out of that. So if you want to participate in this, you are very welcome to do so. And we're going to do it with our eyes open, at least initially. Let's keep our eyes open. You don't have to kind of force them, just don't let yourself drift off into a deep state. Deep states are wonderful, peaceful, but they can also be resistance. If I had a penny for every time I've started to take someone through some self-inquiry and they've fallen asleep or fall into a deep meditative state, I would, have a lot of pennies. But and often it's a way that we resist on an unconscious level, seeing what is. Because once we've seen what is, it's really more challenging to go back to believing our mind 100% with conviction, at least. Perhaps the first time we see what reality is, we will go back to believing our mind. But we won't have the same conviction because we've had a direct experience. And we'll be more convinced of what's actually true. And we'll begin to see that the way that our mind is thinking about reality, thinking about ourselves and others, doesn't really apply to what you actually are. So I'm using this word reality. You could substitute it for consciousness, self with a capital S. Also use the word noumenon, or you could call it presence, the supreme self, Brahman, the infinite intangibility, awareness, anything at all, silence, stillness. I'm using all of those words interchangeably to point to the only thing that's here, which isn't a thing. The only no thing that's here, appearing as all of this. And each time we have a seeing or an understanding that's preceded by a seeing of what's actually true, our mind structure is slightly changed. And the old, very convinced ways of thinking are beginning to break down. So what we have to do to really wake up and live as this 24/7 effortlessly, as what's real, is to be willing to be quite wrong. And not in a blame way, not as in I've done this wrong, just that how we've been taught to think about ourselves and the world, the universe, is not how it is at all. So let's do this now. If you want to join in, you absolutely can. So just with your eyes open, looking around the room that you're sitting in. And most people on this planet would agree that you're sitting somewhere in that room and that you're in a room, and that room contains, excuse me, that room contains a whole lot of objects, different objects. Some of them might be sentient, my cat is here. There's sofas, there's furniture, there's plants, there's all kinds of things in the room. Wherever you are and watching this, the generally agreed concept that we're taught to believe in is that we're sitting here. So the body, where the body is, we say that's where we are. And we think that everything else then in the room is separate to us and different to us. And we give each object a name as if it's a real thing separate to us. And that naming of an object, cat, tree, laptop, body, thought, emotion, illusion. We give all these names to certain things, objects, some of them very, very subtle, but nonetheless objects. And we believe so much in that label that when we actually experience reality, it can be quite a shock that it's not at all what we thought. So just looking around the room again, as you just did, and recognizing, even if it's just mentally, conceptually at first, and that's okay, we'll take it deeper, that everything in the room and the room itself is made of the same substance, substanceless substance. There's only one thing that has ever existed, and it is you. And in some places in the room, you're appearing as visible, tangible. Other places, you're appearing as invisible and intangible. For a moment to experience this, if you just forget the names for a moment that you've put on everything, if you look at your sofa or your bed or the chair you're sitting in, and just forget what it's called, forget the names that we put on everything, just temporarily, I'll put them to the side, so that every object in the room kind of has the same isness. There's no specialty about the body, or the body isn't worth more than a plant. A plant isn't worth more than a stone. You know, all these categories we're going to just let go of. And there's just all this stuff here in the room, which is made of the same essence of everything. And then this that hasn't manifested yet, the invisible, formless intangibility that seems to be punctuated by the objects, broken up into by the objects. Let's just at least conceptually understand that it is the same thing. It can appear as invisible, intangible, inaudible, and it can also appear as visible, tangible, audible. So there is only one thing: the room, your body, the seemingly innocuous empty space, all the objects in the room, and everything are made of the same thing. There is only one continuous oneness which is everywhere. Some places it's appearing as forms that move around and speak. Some places it's appearing as forms that just sit there and don't do anything, like a laptop. Some places it's appearing as subtle objects like thoughts, emotions. Other places still it's not appearing as anything at all. And yet it is unbroken and undivided. There aren't even two types of substance, form and formless. Those words point to the same thing. So just noticing how that feels, it may bring up some fear in your body or some shock. It may also bring up some deep peace, contentment. There is literally nothing else than you. You are everywhere, appearing as all of this. And just by entertaining this, being willing to experience that nothing is what you have thought it was. Of course, we still have access to all those labels and names we put on things for convenience when we talk to other bodies, not other beings, but other bodies. The labels take a background, a secondary seat. And the perception of reality is up front and center, meaning there is only one thing. It can appear as no thing at all, and everything. It's appearing as these words right now, this satsang, everything in the room that you're sitting in, everything in the room that everyone's sitting in, all the rooms, all the towns, all the cities, all the planets, all the galaxies. the entire universe, is made of the same stuff as the space in which it appears. Some places it's visible, some places it's invisible. Where it's visible and perceptible, we call it form. And when it's visible and perceptible with our human senses, we say it's actually real. We think it's actually become something else. We think it's actually divided itself into all these billions of forms, infinite number of forms, billions of human forms, and who knows how many others. But what if they are just appearances, sculpted out of this formlessness, and that even when it does that, appears in a shape, it hasn't lost any of its inherent power, creativity, presence, fullness, richness. Even when it appears as a human being who can think, those thoughts might be that we're disempowered, that we're not good enough. It still is creating those thoughts from and as itself. It hasn't lost anything in that process at all. It could create right now an infinite number of universes, appearances at least, and it still would be completely as full as it was before it created anything. Creation is only an appearance of forms, not actual, just like water in a mirage on a road, or cloud that forms from the water vapor in the sky. Before, the water vapor was invisible, but there, suddenly it's visible and white against the blue or grey background of the sky. That's what's happening with all the objects in the room. They're like clouds, but we make them solid and real by putting a label on them. And because we can interact with them with our human senses, we think they are outside of us, separate to us. But without the presence of our body and our human senses, if you can just imagine that for now, if your body was gone, you have no evidence at all that any forms are actually here, separate to, arising out of, and separate to this stuff from which everything is made. So reality awakening is really just living as this, as the nameless, substanceless stuff, and not even really preferring to have formlessness over form, not even preferring that, not even really preferring whether it's made a shape or it hasn't made a shape. So that when your eyes or ears interact with anything, or any of your senses, the food that you're eating, people that you're meeting, the work that you're doing, all of that, your children, your parents, your siblings, are this same invisible essence of pure consciousness appearing as something, but not actually something. It never really divided itself. It is one complete, whole, homogeneous unit across the entire universe. And there is nothing that is not it. It hasn't lost anything in dancing as all of these shapes. Each of these shapes contains the same propensities, qualities, inherent power, all of that as the original stuff itself. Why is it really worth recognizing this? Well, because then your eyes and your ears and your hands can interact and touch anything in reality at all without the belief that it's separate to you, outside of you. And then you realize that this body, your body, every human body, is not a body at all. It is the same substanceless stuff appearing to be a human body, but not actually. And thoughts are empty of substance. Emotions are empty of substance. Other beings are not really other. They are also appearances in you. The only thing that exists